Hey arty friends, welcome to another World Watercolor Month vlog. Today we are talking about semi-moist half pans, preformed half pans, and using tube watercolors to fill your own half pans. And I have here a small assortment of just some of the watercolor sets I own. I do review a lot of watercolor sets, and I've amassed quite a collection over the years. So if you're interested in learning more about watercolors or finding a set that works for you, please consider checking out some of my other videos here on this channel and subscribing for more, because I have loads in the queue just waiting to be released. Now, in a earlier World Watercolor Month vlog, I talk about my two daily driver palettes, the two palettes I use for my watercolor comics. This one over here and this one here. This Magello Bulletproof palette, as covered by Magello Watercolors, is designed to be filled with tube watercolors. Nice big wells, lots of space. So there are watercolor manufacturers who understand that you're going to be working with your tube watercolors from a dry format. And for many of us, this format honestly works the best. We travel a lot. We paint a lot of small illustrations, or we have pets or kids, so we can't always leave our watercolors out in our studio. So this kind of palette has been around for a while. It's not an unusual type of palette. You can find it at most stores. I think many watercolor artists own or have owned palettes like this. So there is definitely an understanding that many watercolors will be working from tube watercolors in a dry format. Now, over the years, I've attended a couple of hands-on creativities at my local Plaza Art Supply, and the Winsor & Newton rep there has stated that only Winsor & Newton semi-moist half pans are designed to be worked from half pans. They're specifically designed to be worked and reworked to dry out in your palette and then be reactivated. However, I've worked with a lot of watercolors myself, and I've talked to a lot of other watercolor artists, and most of us don't necessarily notice a difference. There might be some preference. I mean, I do still buy some of the half pans after all. In fact, I picked these up, I think, in Japan, where they're like half the cost of what they cost here in the US. But for the most part, if the colors look the same, you can always refill your pans with those colors. Now, a caveat, there is a reason why I buy some of these still in half pans, and that's because the color does differ from what's in the tube. In fact, in my two daily driver palettes, I think I have Winsor & Newton Sepia here and Winsor & Newton Sepia here. This is from a semi-moist half pan. This is from a tube. This is more of a cool, earthy brown. This is a warmer, darker, richer brown. So for me, they behave as different colors. It could be the binders that are used. It could be the additives that are included in these watercolors. I'm not really sure, but they behave differently for me. The same goes for Winsor & Newton. I believe this is indigo, but this might be Holbein neutral tint. But the same goes for Winsor & Newton Indigo. In fact, not every half pan of Winsor & Newton Indigo is even the same color. I used to get Winsor & Newton Indigos that were like this nice sort of blue jean color, hence indigo. But this one in here is a very green influenced indigo, so it's good for foliage, but it kind of messes up how I paint my other colors, or how I mix my other colors, I'm sorry. Now, one of the biggest differences, there's a couple big differences I've noticed between watercolors that are designed to be in half pans already, so they came formulated for the half pan, and watercolors that you yourself put in half pans or put in your palette. The first one is that these half pan watercolors are not going to turn goopy if you add too much water. Whereas with these Magello from the tube watercolors, they use gelatin as one of their binders. And while I love these watercolors, they turn soupy if you pre-activate them. So with these, you really want to work sparingly with water. But otherwise, I really like them. I've also noticed that is an issue with the M. Graham watercolors. Those particularly turn soupy. And some of them, let me see if this is my M. Graham set. It is. some of them never fully harden. I used to have Terra Rosa in here and it never hardened. These are honey-based watercolors, so they will absorb moisture from the atmosphere and they may not ever fully evaporate. And these really do turn soupy when you add water. And for me, that's just something to be aware of. Here we have some core watercolors from tubes. I actually ordered the core half pans as soon as I saw that they'd been released from Dick Blick. They've been on back order for several months. So I really look forward to sharing with you guys my experiences with those watercolors and how my home-filled pans might differ from their pre-filled pans, which I assume use a different formulation, something more designed for half pan and whole pan work. But really, I use both whole pans and I use both watercolors designed from the start to be in half pans, and I self-fill. I do find that my self-filled pans are much more economical. They do shrink, by the way. You can fill, these were all filled all the way up, and I have used them somewhat, but you can also see which colors I didn't use too much of because they're not like, they haven't colored the rest of the pan necessarily, but they've shrunk from evaporation and they pulled away from the pan. So that isn't really a big problem for me. If you care, that can kind of be an aesthetic thing. You can always refill the pan and can let it evaporate and then refill it again. I don't care. I just refill them when they're about empty. And some colors evaporate more than others. I think here on my M. Graham set, I filled these all about the same amount, yellow and purple, and the browns haven't really evaporated that much. But I have found that I can get at least 3 refills from like a 7 milliliter tube. I can get 2.5 from a 5 milliliter tube, and I'm usually paying a lot less than what I pay for the Winsor & Newton half pans. Now, I do have a Winsor & Newton comparison coming up in the future where I directly compare their half pans against the same colors in tubes. I'm just waiting for some to come off of back order. So I'll probably check in with you guys again with that, and we'll talk about the differences there, if there are any differences. But for me, a person who watercolors almost daily, and I do watercolor comics, so consistency is really important to me. I like using watercolors from both semi-moist half pans, like the Winsor & Newton half pans, and dried in my palette. I think both have a place, and I think you can definitely get away with palettes that are just filled from your tubes. So thank you guys so much for watching this World Watercolor Month vlog. I hope it was useful, and I hope you guys will check out some of my other watercolor videos here on my channel. If you have any questions or if you'd like to see anything in particular demonstrated, let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you guys. Otherwise, have a great day, guys. I'll see you again really soon. Bye!